Now, that question is around all the time like a defense, like a way to survive. People are always, in some form or another, asking about possibility and what choices do I have and what can I do with my life and what should I be doing with my life and what did I do with my life and was it right and was it wrong and all that stuff. Listen, the question, what is the possibility of being, like capital B, what is the possibility of being for human beings? Asked against the background of being inauthentic about your inauthenticity. Asked in this environment of being which should be called resignation. Asked in the space of the cover-up of our own inauthenticity is always more of our inauthenticity. It's always more of a survival ploy. Always more of a survival strategy. And so there are lots of answers to the question, what is the being of human beings? There are lots of answers to the question, what is the possibility of being for human beings? And almost none of the answers makes any real difference in people's everyday being in the world. Now, I told you that this work that we call transformation, that we do in the forum, a taste of which we're giving you tonight, was a way of engaging in these questions that are at the heart of the matter for human beings, such that the engaging, the inquiry, the questioning, shows up in people's everyday being in the world as a kind of breaking open for them. You'll find yourself, I promise, going through the things you go through every day, and suddenly there'll be a bit of a breaking open here. There'll be a sense of freedom where earlier there were only a given set of options about which you needed to be clever. Suddenly there'll be a breaking open, a freedom to be with that which you couldn't be with very well before. Someplace else in your life there'll be a sense of being able to be with something that was kind of crowding you, something that was pushing you, something that was confining you, just by virtue of this inquiry, not because you found the prescription, not because you got the answer, not because you know the recipe, not because you got the solution, but just by virtue of this special way of inquiring into these questions. Just by having been here, there'll be a certain empowerment in the face of the risk that being alive is. And you'll find that happening. You'll try to dominate the ruthless rules of reality or avoid the domination of the insights that you find. However, if you really push this question which we've been addressing tonight, what is the being of human beings? It brings you authentically out the other side, at the end of it, like the beginning of something where the beginning is a question, namely, what is the possibility of being for human beings? Now, I don't suppose that that's happened to you very naturally tonight. Because as I said, we're doing in 3.5 hours what people have been working on since the beginning of civilization. But I say that it happens very naturally. When you cover the ground authentically. When you start to live with your own inauthenticity and not ask the question as another ploy to try to avoid your inauthenticity, but just asking the question like a possibility, what is the possibility of being for human beings? Well, the first thing that comes up when you ask the question What is the possibility of being for human beings? The answer that comes up, the first thing that comes up, is there isn't any possibility of being for human beings. And if you don't get to that, you don't get any further. There just isn't any possibility of being for human beings. What you showed up in did not include being. It isn't interested in being. It has nothing to do with being. It is only concerned with survival. So there is no possibility of being for human beings. And that's a part of being authentic about your own inauthenticity. And if you can really be with that, and I doubt that you can fully, if you can be with the emptiness and meaninglessness which you are, if you can be with the emptiness and the meaninglessness of life as a thunderstorm about which we tell a story, that kind of a thunderstorm, suddenly the emptiness and the meaninglessness, when it's lost its meaning that it's empty and meaningless, suddenly becomes a clearing in which to stand and look out for the possibility of being for human beings. See, that which starts out as a threat becomes an opening, a clearing, when you can be with it authentically. And if you are being with it authentically, you're clear that there is no possibility of being for human beings. Now, what do good human beings do in that situation? What would a good human being do? All the good human beings you know, what would you do about it? You would change it. That's what you would do. You would. You would change it. Without ever recognizing that change is something from something. See, change is something which comes from or is made from something. But there is no possibility for being for human beings. So change won't work. Because change only alters the circumstances in the vicious circle. Only becomes another form of survival. Creation is something from nothing. From the no possibility of being for human beings. From the emptiness and meaninglessness of the thunderstorm which we are. From that emptiness and meaninglessness, from that no possibility, from nothing, something. Really, have you got anything in your whole life which isn't predicated on something? No. You haven't got anything in your whole life which isn't a predicate, which isn't predicated on something. Everything in our lives is a derivative. We're always living into the options. And to create is to act without predicate. To act from nothing. What is it for a human being to act from nothing?